So this will happen. Thank you all for joining us. I will not take a lot of time. You know my intro message. You know what we're all about. We're so happy that you're part of this movement. Enjoy yourselves. And just a very quick announcement. I know we're getting a lot of messages about the capacity of the platform. Yes, we are at our 25,000 limit, but we are opening up more space. We have a waiting list of 800 people that we're hoping to get in. So please don't give up on us. Today, right now, this is available live on YouTube. So send the link for friends to join us. And we will make sure we bring everybody who wants to join our platform within the next few days. Just little patience with us. And now, of course, I give the floor to my amazing partner, vice chair and co-chair of the forum, Ivy, to welcome you, and then we'll kick off our program. Thank you. Ivy?
Sorry, I just hit the wrong button. Welcome, everyone. And yes, we are live virtually on from the Apollo. Not really, but I'm Ivy Cook. I'm with the Soka Gakkai International. I'm also the vice chair of NGO CSW with Huri. We have been co-chairing the Global Planning Committee for the whole NGO Forum. We are so excited about the enthusiastic response that we're getting. Over 25,000 people, that's just amazing. So we're making history and we can't wait for all that's to come the next 2 weeks and the next couple or a little less than 2 hours. It's sunny here in New York today. We are happy to welcome you and I hope you enjoy the program.
Thank you, Ivy. So good to have you here with me, always supporting. Well, here we go. We are going to kick off this program. We packed so much in the next 2 hours. Please relax, have a cup of coffee, tea, or a glass of wine, wherever you are around the world, and enjoy the next 2 hours to learn, to be inspired, to just recommit yourselves to gender equality and join us in this journey. So our next presenter, I am so honored to introduce and to allow her to bring some grounding for us as we kick off some serious conversations and some fun conversations as well. Please listen to the Karimi Tisiti, and I hope I didn't mess up her name too much. Thank you. Please enjoy the next few minutes to ground ourselves.
Omateo Tlaskamati Ate Heka Tlalitle. My name is Tekari Matisit. I'm the daughter of Maria and Avelino Vasquez. We're from Mexico. Omateo Tlaskamati Ate Heka Tlalitle. My name is Tekari Matisit. I'm the daughter of Maria and Avelino Vasquez. We're from Mexico. I was born and raised in California, Chicana, indigenous. I'm a midwife, I'm a mother, currently live in New Jersey. So Creator, I want to first acknowledge Lenape land, Lenape relatives here, and like that, thinking of all our indigenous relations throughout Turtle Island, throughout Anahuac, Tiwantisuyo. In this humble prayer, Creator, in Panemoani, Teukuyani, Hikuri, Kayumari, Tatewari, I want to ask for a prayer involving anything to do with gender equality and women's rights, and also include all life givers and people who identify with the pronouns of she, they, them, z. I want to ask you, Creator, for an end to gender-based violence, for an end to the missing and murdered indigenous women, for an end to the missing and murdered women throughout the world, for an end to the forced and continued sterilization of women, of life givers, for an end to female genital mutilation, for an end to the increased rates of maternal mortality, for an end to any complications with prenatal care, birth, postpartum care, for an end to misogyny, for an end to sexism, for an end to racism, for an end to economic inequalities amongst life givers. And I want to ask the direction of the West as we follow in our indigenous Mexica traditions, the direction of Xipetotec, thunder beings, water beings, all the grandmas, life givers of Cuautlicue, Tlecuautlecupe, Tlazoteo, Coyolxauhqui, Nana Metzli, that as we continue to fight and demand for environmental justice, for access to clean water, for the protection of sacred sites throughout the world, that same prayer for women, because we are one, for life givers, because we are one, the continued uplifting of the matriarchs. That's my humble prayer. Aho Mateo. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that grounding, we will continue with our program, and we're starting with—
What about your fears?
One of the funniest things. Mine was—
So we're starting with a conversation between two famous people. I think you know them. So it is the chair of the CSW, the 65th session, His Excellency, Mr. Maher Margarian.
I know these are kind of—
And also the UN Undersecretary General and Executive Director of UN Women, Phumzile Mlambo Ngcuka, and moderated by a US State Representative of Michigan, Madi Manoogian. Thank you so much. I turn it over to you, Madi.
Thanks so much, Ivy. I appreciate it. All right, so good morning. I suppose I think there are folks tuning in from all around the world, so I'll say good morning because I'm in the Eastern time zone here in Michigan. And thank you so much to Dr. Atisil for that inspiring ceremony to honor our mothers and grandmothers who brought us all here to this point this morning. And special thanks as well to Huri and Ivy, the NGO CSW chair and vice chair, who without your hard work, this virtual forum wouldn't be possible. I'm State Representative Mari Manoogian, and since 2019, I've been honored to represent my hometown just outside of Detroit, Michigan, as a representative for Michigan's 40th District in the Michigan House of Representatives. I am beyond excited to be moderating this panel for NGO CSW's Consultation Day, opening up this year's NGO CSW65 Virtual Forum. For the next 40 minutes, I'll be speaking with Ambassador Maher Margarian, who is the permanent representative of the Republic of Armenia to the United Nations and chair of the Commission of the Status of Women, and Dr. Phumzile Mlambo Ngcuka, the executive director of UN Women, where we'll be discussing key issues facing women, particularly young women, engaging in electoral politics and political advocacy today. I have to say that from the moment I got the call from the folks at NGO CSW, I've really been looking forward to this conversation. I moved home and started running for office at just 24 years old and have been the youngest woman serving in the Michigan legislature since I took my oath of office just over 2 years ago. And while I'm grateful for my ability to advocate for my community in the halls of our state government here in Michigan every day, I would be remiss not to say that as both a young woman and a woman of color, I and folks like me face real, tangible challenges to achieving our goals. Women and girls face societal, cultural, and legislative challenges, even threats to full participation in their societies around the world. And it is exciting to be hearing from leaders such as the ambassador and the executive director here today about where we are and, more importantly, what we have to do to restructure our societies to protect, support, promote women's leadership in politics and civil society. I, like so many of you, am so grateful that throughout my life, I've been guided by strong-willed women who were unwilling to accept the inherently lesser status quo that so many women suffer under around the world. From my mother, Dr. Sandra Manoogian, the granddaughter of survivors of the Armenian genocide, who both successfully ran her small business and still made time to be an excellent mother to me and my sister, to Ambassador Samantha Power, who I was honored to work for at the U.S. mission to the United Nations, and to so many of my female colleagues in the state legislature, without whose support and guidance I would not be the successful community advocate I am today. Women carve the path that I tread today, and I'm excited to speak with Ambassador Margarian and Executive Director Phumzile about the ways we can support women to shatter even more barriers on the path to full and equal participation in our society. All right, so let's just get this thing going. So my first question I have prepared here. So I really want this to be more of an ongoing sort of free-flowing conversation. I think we have a lot of opportunity to have, just a really exciting dialogue, but I have a first opening question for the ambassador. So this is related to the COVID-19 pandemic. 20 years after the adoption of the landmark resolution 1325, women are still being disproportionately affected by humanitarian emergencies. The Secretary General's call for an immediate global ceasefire, launched at the outset of the pandemic, was an important step to help mobilize efforts against the pandemic. Yet in certain parts of the world, including in your own region, war and violence have broken out amidst an unprecedented global healthcare crisis. What's been the UN's response, and why didn't prevention mechanisms work?
Well, good morning, and thank you, Huri, and thank you to the colleagues for inviting me to be part of this conversation. Indeed, this CSW session this year will be going also mostly virtual, and since it has been the largest gathering of the NGO community also at UN, it's unfortunate that we will not be seeing each other in person, but I'm very excited to learn that there are around 20,000 participants virtually. Thank you for the question. And indeed, COVID-19 pandemic has aggravated the suffering of women and girls in situations of conflict, humanitarian crisis, and other fragile contexts. And despite the calls for international solidarity and appeals for global ceasefire, as you rightly mentioned, made by the Secretary General at the outset of pandemic, the past year has seen an unprecedented level of violence, war, and human suffering. Our region is one such example where senseless and brutal violence and destruction disrupted the decades-long efforts for peace, development, and human security and caused a major humanitarian crisis. Indeed, consolidated support of the international community is crucial for ensuring that women and girls are protected in conflict settings, in situations of humanitarian crisis. Needless to say, when it comes to such instabilities, women and girls are the ones disproportionately affected and continue to be at increased risk of injustice and inequality, including in terms of access to essential services, resilience, and livelihood opportunities. This is a source of grave concern that needs to be addressed by international community. And I would like to mention that Armenia will be raising this issue also at multiple levels, also during the upcoming CSW session through a side event entitled Between War and Pandemic that will be held on 18 this week. That will take place also in conjunction with in cooperation with Armenian Bar Association of America. It has already generated considerable interest, and we invite all interested stakeholders to register and to attend what promises also to be a very candid discussion. I would also like to highlight that within the UN family, Armenia has always been a strong advocate for protection of the rights of women living in conflict areas. We have seen that failure to promote these efforts can threaten peace and security processes and undermine the efforts to protect at-risk populations. I'm absolutely convinced that the UN system should do more to engage affected populations and to support those who amplify their voices. This is very important also from the prevention perspective. It has to be mentioned that prevention is not and has never been a simple process, as very often neither societies nor the international institutions are fully prepared to identify early warning signs and assess the risks to full extent. And I think we can all agree that the recent outbreaks of violence have clearly demonstrated that UN needs to re-equip itself in addressing these challenges and delivering on the prevention agenda. Otherwise, it is destined to ad hoc reactions, inertia, or sometimes reduced effectiveness. There is a need to step up efforts to help mitigate situations where the values of tolerance, respect for human life and human dignity are increasingly challenged. And at this difficult time in history of humanity, the irresponsibility of flaring hate speech, racial and ethnic profiling, glorification of hate crimes, especially led and encouraged by the political leaders, should be a source of particular concern to the entire international community and serve as a clear early warning sign of potential conflict and mass violence. So the UN must be well equipped and fully positioned to detect such early warning signs and address them. As Secretary General put it himself, peace is a human rights imperative. And in my national capacity, I would also like to highlight that for many years, Armenia has been consistent in supporting multilateral efforts for prevention agenda and strengthening early warning capacities of the United Nations through, including also multiple resolutions at the General Assembly and Human Rights Council, and we will continue to support the global efforts for prevention of identity-based violence, mass atrocities, including crime of genocide. But there is still a long way to go, sadly. And as we have witnessed also in course of the recent outbreak of violence in Nagorno-Karabakh, where a maternity hospital was specifically targeted and in capital Stepanakert, which further exacerbated the suffering of women and girls who have been affected by conflict, trapped between war and pandemic.
Executive Director, do you have anything to add to this conversation on this prevention of conflict during a pandemic?
Yes, I mean, just agreeing with the ambassador, we actually need at a national and community level to work for collaborative efforts to demand that law enforcement in all countries does not only engage when the problem has happened, that we support them to be equipped to work with community who provides the best intelligence ever. And women are really, really good. From our experience from Burundi to Sudan, the intelligence that is provided by women to law enforcement when there is a collaboration and a shared intent to avoid any atrocities, that helps very much to make it possible within communities to avoid these atrocities.
So this kind of segues perfectly into the next question, what you were just saying, Madam Executive Director, because what I heard you saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we need to see these prevention mechanisms take the word of women and girls seriously when they come forward with these with this information, right? So making sure that we're validating these voices and that they have legitimacy in these conversations, which is the heart of dignity of women in general, right? And so my question for you, Madam Executive Director, is given the priority theme of CSW65 of women's full participation and effective participation in decision-making in public life, what do you believe is essential to create a more sustainable, coordinated response to the COVID pandemic that amplifies women's leadership? And if you're able to, can you speak to what it takes to ensure the effective participation of women once they enter those decision-making positions? Because of course, getting a seat at the table is one thing, but making your voice heard while you're in that room is entirely another.
Yeah. Well, firstly, let me start by saying that if we look at many of the problems that we are facing as a result of the pandemic, we're talking about job losses, which affects women disproportionately. 2/3 of the jobs lost were lost by women. The increase of violence against women, and now it's even getting to younger and younger women. The burden of unpaid care, which has increased dramatically, the isolation of women from the workplace because they are not equipped to work in a digital world, which has been thrusted upon us almost overnight. These are many of the problems that impact on women. So to then not have women making decisions about solutions, I think men are great, if I may say so cynically, but I mean, they're good human beings, but to think that they alone have the capacity to solve the problems that are so disproportionately impacting on women is not even doing justice to themselves. Women's participation in finding the solutions of the moment and the future is actually quite critical. Of course, the story is of how countries that are led by women have handled the pandemic tells us how it could have been if there were many more women who are leaders. Right now, we only have 22 women heads of states in the world. And of course, these decisions are also taken at cabinet level. Yep. Only 13 countries, having come down from 14 last year, have gender equal cabinet. So by not having women participating in cabinet, deciding on the policy and the direction of the countries, we are robbing countries of the insights that women bring into this discussion. And of course, at this time of fighting the pandemic, we are also trying to address the pre-existing conditions in society, because the situation is this dire for women because they already was a lot wrong. If you consider the job losses, women lost the jobs in such high numbers because women were in jobs that are predominantly unprotected. They are not covered in many countries by the labor law. They do not have a way of enforcing contracts. And it has always been easy to hire and fire women. So the participation of women and women having a table in the seat is about fixing these labor relations conditions that render women to be both cheap labor as well as unprotected work. The recovery from the pandemic and the building back better has got to be about ensuring that women have decent jobs, in addition to creating new jobs, given the fact that so many of the jobs that women used to have are not going to exist, and preparing women for the world of work that awaits us, for which women were not trained and not prepared.
That makes perfect sense. It's exactly what we're seeing here in Michigan, even. You know, we, to your point about having women at the table in these decision-making positions and so few women in cabinet level positions or as heads of state, our governor here in Michigan is a woman, Gretchen Whitmer, and she has been characterized as someone who is frankly taking away the freedom of people, when in reality, the authority of our state vested her with the ability to keep us safe during the pandemic. And we have seen numbers that put us in a place where we knew that thousands more Michiganders could have died from this disease. But because of her swift decision-making skills, she's someone who really stepped up and made good decisions and worked really well with those in her cabinet, men and women, to make those decisions. But what I thought was so effective about her was when she came on TV every day to report what was happening and to update our constituency, she did it from a place of compassion. And she did it from a place that really, when you see women and men leading, oftentimes women are told to act more like men in the decision-making roles, but that power that she had as a woman leader, really showing that compassion, was something that I thought was incredibly important for us in our state. So, Mr. Ambassador, I have one brief question for you. And it's a kind of a big question, so I'm sorry to make it a brief question. But last year, the UN and member states committed to fight what was described as the infodemic. And how can the international community fight gendered disinformation? I know that we see it a lot. I've seen it a lot, especially during the pandemic, and especially running as a female candidate for public office. You can see it in in the way that we campaign sometimes. So I thought this was a really great question.
Well, thank you for that question. But if you allow me also to go back to the earlier question and echo what the executive director said regarding the critical importance of women engagement in the global response and recovery from COVID-19 crisis. Without their leadership and equal participation, the road to recovery from pandemic will be even harder. And it is important to continue to refine, strengthen, and deepen the commitments while reviewing and evaluating progress on regular basis. For example, in the Commission on Status of Women, we'll be using the voluntary presentations by member states to evaluate progress in implementation of its agreed commitments from prior years, also through consideration of the review themes. And it is critical aspect of accountability in the intergovernmental context that we need to continue to improve and evolve. As to the question of related to the infodemic and disinformation campaign, indeed, while the rise of digital technologies has enhanced access to knowledge and factual information, it has also enhanced opportunities for manipulation and misinformation and proliferation of divisive narratives for some political gains or otherwise. Sadly, too often mass media and social networks are used to promote hate speech and racist narratives, or even worse, serving to justify or whitewash past atrocities, breeding culture of impunity and recurring violence. We all need to take efforts for a safe, equitable, and open digital future that does not infringe on privacy or dignity. I think this requires effective policies and regulations that no single nation can implement alone, and UN is very well fit to address these issues.
I think that's a great point. I often also see, as someone who's a young woman in a political position that has a Twitter account and an Instagram account and ways that I keep up with my constituents, the kinds of messages that we get sent to us versus what gets sent to my male colleagues who are similarly situated. I told them about it and it was eye-opening, the kinds of threats that we get sent to us, the kinds of just hateful things that get sent to my inbox versus what someone in an equally situated position in my state level government sees on a regular basis. And so, frankly, the kind of the heavy lifting that women do in these spaces, because, we show up today and we show up every day to our jobs, knowing that we have a job to do and that's what we're here for. But also knowing that there's this potential for, any of these things to happen to us along the way. We do that heavy lifting, but we know that, the work that we do is incredibly important. And so, my heart goes out to all women who experience that in all workplaces, because we know that that's something that happens everywhere.
Yeah, and Marie, this targeting of women also contributes towards discouraging women to avail themselves for leadership positions, because
that's right.
It criticizes their families. And in fact, a large number of women have experienced physical violence, death, and of course, now the technology is enabling even bullying that was unimaginable before. So it is actually quite a serious issue, and women experience that from members of their own party as well as from the opposition. So in this CSW, one of the things I'm looking for is really for us to be categorical about promoting women's leadership and taking an active role in ensuring that women are protected from this and making it a crime to target and brutalize women in this manner.
I think that's a great segue to this next question I have for you, Madam Executive Director, sort of about intersectional and multi-generational leadership amongst women. I think that that's something that, you know, now that we are in the 21st century, there's been more and more opportunities for women of multiple generations to have held leadership positions. I, in fact, serve in a very multi-generational legislature where there are women who are in their 50s, 60s, and even their 70s serving. And then there's women like me who are in their 20s and their 30s. And so my question for you is that in the context of this feminist multilateralism, activation points of the Generation Equality Forum, what are opportunities that this multi-stakeholder, intergenerational, and intersectional process can offer in terms of women's leadership and representation?
Well, it is important that the intergovernmental process that we are familiar with, CSW and so on, is also supported by other mechanisms which are much more easier to handle because the intergovernmental space is quite complex. In some ways, that is limited multilateralism. What we are trying to do in the context of generation equality is to complement intergovernmental processes by bringing in more people who can help us to advance our objective, who don't find full expression in the very tight space that multilateralism provides. And it is good to have member states also in that space, because by having member states, they are able to take the issues back into the intergovernmental space, but also still be present in the extra space that brings together young women shoulder to shoulder with an ambassador, with private sector, with the sports person, with philanthropists, all of them expanding the space. Informing the action coalitions, for instance, that will take forward the issues that generation equality will be dealing with. We are making sure that we provide almost like a business plan for gender equality in which everybody has a role. You don't have to be a delegate, you just have to be concerned about the issue, and you have we have a ticket and an entry point to take these issues forward. Because coming out of Beijing, we have and still have a fantastic document and agreement by states, but we did not have a plan for execution. We did not have a budget to follow this up. What we are trying to do in generation equality is to bring in an execution plan, is to bring in investments into this agenda, is to bring back timeframes as well as measurable successes. So we are asking commitment makers to generation equality to make concrete commitment. I will enable access to contraceptives to X number of women within this space of time. Otherwise, things are just left hanging. The situation is so dire because now we are trying to complete the unfinished business from Beijing. We are trying to accelerate the implementation of SDGs, and we are responding to a pandemic. So we're putting all of these issues together in generation equality. We are also saying this cannot be done if we are not working across generations. You actually need an intergenerational solution and implementation cohort that will make sure that you can project from 30 years to now, where probably some of us will not be there, but you are able to then bring in younger people at this point who can have the possibility to walk the long walk, but staying connected with these other stakeholders, such as governments, and making sure that private sector also contributes to make the world a better place.
That's excellent. I think that, you know, talking about that partnership that we can make, not just intergenerationally, but through private and public partnerships, all of those things are really important, because it's not just us in government that have that obligation to help move everything forward. Because as we talked about earlier, really the economic advancement of women is the way that this will, the way that we'll achieve equality in the future. Empowering women through economic means is the way forward. Because if they're able to provide for themselves and help provide for their families, it creates a space where women are able to achieve that level of equality that, you know, if they weren't given the ability to advance economically. And to your point, I think there were a couple points that were raised earlier that I thought were really interesting about sort of the work that women do, and the fact that those job losses throughout the pandemic have really disproportionately hit women. In the United States, we switched to a service-based economy probably about between 7 and 10 years ago. Really, you could seriously see that. And so many of those jobs are held by women. The union movement has become the organized labor union movement has become centered on women here in the States, because a lot of that work is organizing women who work in nursing homes, organizing women who work in the service industry. And so there's, you know, the shifting face of even organized labor here in the United States, from, you know, trade unionists and workers who, of course, we still have folks in the skilled trades, but seeing that shift has really been something to behold as well. So we can see that some of those worker protections for women, you know, are coming through our organized labor friends as well. So I think we're nearly at the end of our conversation here. Madam Executive Director, I believe, did you have a question for me as well?
Yes, Marie. As a young woman who, I sort of changed the question, a young woman who is in a leadership position, I really would like you to give advice to other young women who aspire to be where you are. What are just some of the critical things that they should pay attention to?
Sure. So I'm going to be very, very honest about this. So for context, I'm the youngest woman serving in the Michigan House of Representatives. I started running for office when I was 24, and am now 28 years old, and I'm serving in my second term. So I've been doing this for a little while now. And I guess a couple of really, really important pieces of advice that I have that I might not have known before I got into the position. It's really the concept of intergenerational leadership is really, really important. And it's something that both younger women and older women have an obligation to each other to help fulfill. It's something that in my caucus, we struggle with that. And I'm happy to talk openly about that. I think a lot of it has to do with, the different time periods that we were raised in, and those different experiences that we bring to the table. But I think it's really incumbent upon younger women to include older women in these conversations, because oftentimes, our generation, the generation below me, sort of gets caught up in hanging out with each other and sort of circulating our ideas amongst each other, but not seeking out the advice of folks who came before us, I think can be something we struggle with. But at the same time, I think that women who are a generation and a half older than me, who I serve with, also have that obligation to seek out the advice and counsel from younger folks, because we all bring a different perspective to the table. So my advice would be incredibly open to new experiences, open to talking to people you might not have otherwise talked to. Typically in my country, we have basically two major political parties. And so if you're a Democrat, you really get stuck talking to the Democrats. And if you're a Republican, you're really stuck talking to the Republicans. And I can imagine that there's all kinds of different versions of that around the world, where you're stuck, you really hang with the group of people that you tend to agree with. And the thing that I've sort of taken my own advice this term and really done a lot more work to reach across the aisle to talk to people who have experiences that I have never had before. And I think that's another piece of advice I would give for young folks is, seek out those who have different experiences from you and learn from them. You may not always agree with what they have to say, but having those relationships, especially if you're looking to get something done that's a really difficult thing to address, right? Starting building those relationships, treating people with dignity and respect early, getting to know them really well. I've become really good friends with some folks across the aisle, and we always ask how each other's, families are. How are your kids? How's your sister? We always check in with each other. So when we go to have those difficult conversations, it doesn't become personal and ad hominem attacks. They're coming from a place of what we believe is a genuine desire to do something good. And so I think that, for me, those are my two biggest pieces of advice. So we're really close to the end of all of this here this morning, and I'm sad it's coming to a close. So I want to give each of you a couple minutes to briefly, wrap things up, and if you have a brief message. So we'll start with the ambassador.
Thank you, Mari. Thank you very much for moderating this discussion. And very briefly, this year's CSW theme is women's full and effective participation and decision-making in public life, as well as the elimination of violence for achieving gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls. In this regard, today's opportunity also to engage in this dialogue with you, who is a very well-recognized public figure and politician. I believe a role model for so many girls and young women is truly inspiring for me as chair of CSW, and of course as an Armenian. Also as a father of two daughters, this resonates very closely to me and to my vision for a more equal world where all girls and women can fulfill their aspirations freely and on equal footing. I would stop here and leave this as an invitation also to reflect on our collective conscience to implement this important pledge, which is yet to be fulfilled. Thank you, Marie, very much. And
thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Madam Executive Director, I'll leave the floor to you to close this out.
Yeah. No, thank you, Marie, for your inspiring moderating. Thank you, Ambassador, for kickstarting this CSW week with the wise words and spelling out our homework these coming 2 weeks. My message to colleagues in civil society is please make sure that you are there virtually to accompany the negotiations as you do always. Let's find a way of making sure that the presence of civil society is felt. The Vienna Cafe that is next to the negotiating room at the UN, let us create it virtually because what we are discussing now is something that really member states can afford to make bold decisions about, bold recommendations about, because the pandemic does not take away the possibility for them to give strong recommendation about what needs to be done to promote women's leadership. We know that everywhere where we have seen progress on women's leadership, it is because there has been special measures to promote women's leadership. Quotas, targets, policies that mandates this leadership to happen. Let us make sure that you support the negotiations in such a way that we come out with recommendations that are really poignant and concrete. This is crunch time, this is crisis. If women are not included at this CSW, we are missing a really critical opportunity to put women on the driver's seat when the world is at crossroads. And if we cannot, as a CSW, rise up to this occasion in such a crisis, why do we exist? It really is a big existential question that we have to ask ourselves. We need the strongest possible recommendations that actually call for the strongest political will to promote women's leadership. And this is something that heads of states talked a lot about last year when they were arguing and celebrating the 25 years of Beijing Declaration. So please be there, please be there.
Thank you so much. I'll turn this back over to Huri.
You all are amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, Madame Fumzili, and thank you, Marie. It is such a great honor for us, honestly, to welcome a US representative. We've always felt like US never pays attention to CSW or, to UN. So this is really exciting to have you here, and I hope you'll stay our partner forever. And you have a space with us anytime you want. Bring our voices to the Capitol. Yes. Thank you so much for an amazing moderation and for Madame Fumzili to be so passionate and open again. And of course, for the ambassador, we count on you, Ambassador, to really make space for our civil society voices and to keep opening up spaces for us and for that strong outcome document, as Madame Fumzili said. I wanted to just briefly take advantage of this opportunity and say that what I picked up from this conversation, and it really resonated with me, is how we as women leaders can make choices as well. For example, in NGO CSW, I just want to give a shout out to my executive committee and our global planning committee. We started off with, before even the pandemic, and then the pandemic actually made it even more important, with this idea that we have a collaborative, respectful, shared leadership space. And I personally always wanted to bring in more of the abundance feeling rather than the scarcity, right? So it's something that I actually felt when I first joined the whole Generation Equality Forum, and we'll talk about that later after the little break we're going to have. But I wanted to make that connection in the minds of our audience, is that we have a choice on how we do this as well. So let's rise up together and let's really figure out a way to make this a space of abundance rather than scarcity and competition, let's say, and then, that whole shared leadership model. So thank you so much again. And please stick around. There's going to be, Madame Fumzili, the next segment you're going to love. It's all about Girls Speak Out. Ivy, you have the floor. Thanks again.
Thank you, Huri. So, and thank you for all the panelists prior. And yes, so it's a Girls Speak Out slam poetry. This is a pre-recording of some of the girls from the working group on girls.
I'll rise and shine.
A chuva vem de fogo, tal como nós, não tem nada a temer.
There's a mountain that stands before us, towering and intimidating. It daunts the possibility of equality. There's a mountain that stands before us that allows Black girls like me to dream of the moments where we strive to one day climb that mountain and reach the top. There's a mountain that stands before us, yet only some are lucky enough to climb. Only some have the advantage to reach the top. In the distance, a light beams off the top of the mountain. We get a first glance, a first chance to believe that we can reach the peak. What obstructs that chance, blocking that glance? There's no promise that the road is easy nor fair, but together girls stand, and together we'll get there.
Yes. The road to their rescue lies rough, but not for I. Cause I'm a star as one, but I speak for billion voices. I'm not a victim, but that gives me more reason to speak for the voiceless. Cause I'm a girl given the right to speak as loud as I want, gain the right to talk as much as I want. Which means I say yes when I want to, and no when I want to. And right now I say no to violence.
No to violence. No to resistance. We live in a world of no's. Everything we say and do undergoes the opinion of society, but now we are saying no to violence, and we are taking on this mountain with devotion. There's a mountain that stands between us, America, the land of the free, more like the land that is free to few. I often wonder why, because of the color of my skin, can I not climb this mountain? If I live on the land that allows for liberty and justice for all, why do I fall? Why do we fall? And why do some not fall at all?
I was 4 years old when I realized I wanted to become a fashion designer and roam around the runways with my pieces. I was 10 when I found myself whispering away to my friends on how I wanted to become a veterinarian. And I was only but 12 when I found myself in awe of learning that the world I live in will someday be too warm. Too warm for the climate. Too warm, creating the melting of Antarctic ice sheets that provide land for the animals that inhabit the area. Too warm to cause numerous extreme natural disasters, but somehow too warm for people in power to make a difference.
At a young age, we see that people in power leave making a difference up to us. It is too warm to address climate change, discrimination, pollution, and politics, so it is simply dropped on our laps. We are knee-deep in a sea of problems, yet no one is helping us solve them. And suddenly, it's dependent on girls to make a change. Sometimes it looks like a game, but together we can win. The rain, the wind, the fire. Like us, they have nothing to fear.
Meninas e mulheres, calorosas ou frias, na primavera mal me queres, no outono procuro melhorias. Glaciar derrete e mais uma de nós se perde. Chega de ser marionete, quero paz e mundo verde. Num lugar, sol, areia e balde. Por aqui, continuo a lutar para mundo com igualdade. Na terra vizinha, vejo neve a cair. Sei que não estou sozinha, meninas unidas para estereótipos destruir. Por vezes, parece jogo, mas juntas conseguimos vencer. A chuva, o vento e o fogo, tal como nós, não têm nada a temer. Árvores despidas, sem nada, que em cada folha caída se torna uma mulher empoderada. O mar a subir e cada uma de nós também. Dia, ninguém nos vai proibir. Dia, vamos além. Não à violência, chega de dor. Sim à exigência, para do mundo cada ser cuidador. Tudo se altera, aos olhos de alguns, uma bonita paisagem. Basta, não vou ficar à espera, não quero ser apenas uma passagem. Parece muito bonito, mas nada normal. Nascer menina, mulher, seria mais fácil com manual.
So together, we prepare and dare to venture to the top. With our map, our guide in hand, we enter through the world of wrongs and know it is our job to make them rights.
I'm now 14 and being told that my generation will make change and somehow cure the multiple failures that we, the people, have caused towards our environment. I've grown to now know that my desires must be at a halt in order to prevent any younger generations from living in a world of pollution and politics.
And now, it's all up to us. The failures of generations in our past laying heavy and burdensome bricks on our backs. Girls, we are growing up looking at our world through the lenses of pollution and politics. Why is this what we have come to? The answer lies within the bias of the minority. O country of mine, O nation of inequality, if I were to climb, would I do so much as reach the top? Would I climb your mountain with the weight on my back, especially solid and dense due to the melanin that I do not lack? As I trek closer to the top, the air becomes thin and I can't breathe. Your gracious skies create a facade of hope and freedom for me, the daughter of a minority, to believe that I can persevere to the top. What if one day we went outside, the sun melted on our cheeks, and it was all okay? But how selfish of me to believe in America to bloom an altruistic society, one where everyone was seen as equal and the Black girl no longer had to dream, but she had everyone believing in her to reach the top of the mountain. America the beautiful, oh nation of inequality, give us this dream, give us this hope. So we claim our destiny. We refuse it to be fatalistic. We are able to realize that we are the dream. We are this hope. At times when we reach a low, girls, we have to step back and ask, who is your CEO?
I am my one CEO. I am not just a girl. I'm a girl with big dreams, big goals, and big plans. We have big hearts and we try not to fall apart. Our minds aren't complicated. Our thoughts are just hatred. Leadership is in my veins, for I am the cornerstone of every home, capable of maintaining multiple jobs. A homemaker inside and a hardworking boss outside. The knot is strong, the string is tight, and it won't break loose, no matter how much I fight. After falling once, twice, thrice, again and again, I'll rise and shine. I'll rise after every fall, after every stumble, I will rise. Never underestimate the mind of girls.
With power in our hands, we levitate to the summit. Maybe it's the doubt of others that causes girls to plummet. So even if we fall time and time again, together we will climb. Never underestimate the mind of girls. Our voices are revolutionary.
Okay, how amazing and inspiring was that? I've been watching that at least once a day leading up to. Thank you. Yes. Well, that was definitely inspiring for us to get right into this conversation. Thank you, Working Group on Girls, for going around the world collecting those girls' voices for us. I am so excited and honored to introduce this next group of panelists. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to share the two photos that I was thinking of sharing right now, but it was June 2019 when we were called into UN Women's Office and we started this conversation about generation equality forums. And oh, there it is. Oh my gosh, Devin can pull up miracles. Okay, if you notice the word joy up there, you don't have to know anything else. It was really after Lopa presented her ideas to us, I just was, it felt like 10 years ago when I first heard UN Women launch at CSW65. And I thought, oh, this is what I want to do now for the next few years. And 10 years later, I'm still here with NGO CSW. So we were gathered with Nadine and Delphine and Lopa with quite a few civil society. And it was just so inspiring to hear the idea that Generation Equality Forum was all about. And just like Madame Fumzili just talked about earlier as well. So, I mean, of course, the pandemic happened and everything changed. So we thought it really important to check in with everyone who's as committed as we are at NGO CSW to see this happen. And we're gonna kick it off with 5 civil society voices who are doing their best to engage and to amplify this message. And then we're gonna go to the core group and hear their thoughts about their challenges, hopes, and joys of this movement. And I just want to remind you that NGO CSW committed last year, and you will see it again. We are hoping to create this joyful disruption. You know, we'll have a rally next Friday. This is what it's all about. We work really hard, but we don't want to forget the joy that comes with it. So my job here is really to basically introduce each speaker by their name, and then they will give us their challenges, hopes, and joys around Generation Equality Forum. So sit back, relax, and really take in what is going to be shared for the next 50 minutes. Let's start with Chamatia Fernando. She's Generation Equality Youth Task Force. Chamatia, the floor is yours. Just unmute yourself and put yourself on camera. Thank you. I know Chamatia is here somewhere. Did we lose her? Oh, there she is. Chamatia, just unmute yourself. I hope it's not a connection problem. Okay. We might have lost her again. We can go back to her, perhaps. Zanzua?
I'm here.
Wait, actually, no, we're doing civil society. I'm sorry, I have the wrong list in front of me. So if Chamatia is not here, let's go to Amani Aruri. I'm sorry, I just looked at the wrong list. It's just me being me, Huri being very excited. Let's start with Amani Aruri. Thank you so much. Apologies.
Thank you, Huri. Thank you, everyone. It's such a great pleasure to be among all of you today. And talking about challenges, Huri, this is one of the first challenges that youth and girls face all around the world. Access to internet, to stable internet also, and access to information. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to give my remarks as a young activist and working on the Generation Equality Forum. So 25 plus years after the adoption of Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, 20 plus years after the adoption of the Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace and security, and 5 plus years after the adoption of the UN Security Council Resolution 2020-50 on youth, peace and security, but still women, youth, and girls in different parts of the world are facing different kinds of challenges and, of course, difficulties, living in conflicts, under conflicts, occupations, wars, and humanitarian crisis, also lacking safety, security, and peace. And on top of that, experiencing intentional exclusion from the decision-making process on all levels. On top of that, also, the COVID-19 pandemic has not only highlighted the gaps in our political, economic, legal, and social systems, but also exacerbated the existing injustices, inequalities, and gaps by which women, girls, and youth are disproportionately impacted. So the Generation Equality Forum places women, youth, and girls' rights agenda at the forefront by elevating the voices of feminists, activists, and civil society organizations and supporting their global solidarity movement. It offers a huge inclusive platform that brings diverse voices and forces of leaders for social change from all over the world and from all generations to come together with governments, international organizations, and private sector to achieve gender equality and justice. It also clearly acknowledges the crucial role youth plays in achieving its ambitious goals. It has shown a will to support young people's leadership by establishing, for example, youth task force, by recruiting also 300 national gender youth activists to drive youth participation locally, regionally, and internationally. By each of the 6 action coalitions have a dedicated spot for youth-led organizations, and last but not least, Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action Compact that has working tirelessly to ensure the representation and leadership also of young people on all levels and aspects. But to be transformative and not just diverse, we need to move from only youth participation and youth engagement to youth leadership and co-ownership, which requires that we are giving real power, decision-making power, as well as agenda-setting power. Many young people are actively working to build peace and respond to insecurity in their communities, countries, and regions, and their work must be recognized. So Generation Equality Forum will definitely elevate the voices of unheard youth and women and show their crucial presence in crafting better world for all, and hopefully changing the stereotype, breaking the stereotypes against women and youth, also proving their ability to take the lead and their capabilities of also initiating change. At the end, it's also important to emphasize on the need to celebrate our success as a women's movement, as youth movement, also to initiate and create this global solidarity campaign in which we are all from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different different representations, come together and we share our concerns, we share our experiences and also our aspirations to our futures and also the future of younger generations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amani. Thank you for saving me from that, silly thing I did. I was reading the wrong list. And thank you for speaking from your Palestinian background, who understands about the peace and security. And, thank you for being the youth activist that you are. Now we move on to my friend, Diana Abu Abbas from Beirut, Lebanon, who has been such an amazing part of our global planning committee as well. Diana, you have the floor.
Thank you, Huri. I would like to start off by thanking you and Ivy and Devon and all of our friends from the NGO CSW in the regions. And thank you for teaching me so much throughout the past year. It's been the highlight of 2020, joining our meetings to plan for this CSW. My name is Diana Abu Abbas. I am the Executive Director at Masa Sexual Health Center, which is based in Lebanon, in Beirut, Lebanon, and we advocate for sexual and reproductive health and rights. Today in Lebanon, we are witnessing the darkest days in our history, as the country is falling under the weight of 30 years of corruption and sectarianism. We are suffering from a complete economic collapse, and we just survived a devastating explosion in the summer in Beirut. And throughout all of this, COVID-19 came as a very strong blow to a weakened people and a weakened system. Similarly, in the region, other countries like Syria, Palestine, Yemen, Libya, Egypt, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, and more are standing united in their political movement against oppressive regimes and discriminating laws against women. And they are also suffering from their own individual crises. As feminists in the Middle East and North Africa, we are working together on strengthening our networks and building evidence for our joint advocacy to challenge the systems that are keeping women at the forefront of the pandemic response, without supporting them in overcoming the effects it leaves on their physical and mental health and their personal lives. We hope that together as young activists, rural women, able-bodied and living with a disability women, refugees and migrants, LGBTQ women, grassroots feminist organizations, academic institutions and allies in governmental institutions and the private sector will stand in solidarity to challenge the COVID effects, personal status and discriminatory laws, violence in the public and the private sphere, and achieve economic and legal justice, eradicate gender-based violence, empower women with bodily agency and autonomy, and ensure future generations have a safe and healthy planet, and invest innovation and technology for gender equality. And we will do all of that through building our intersectional feminist movement under true inclusionary feminist leadership. After such a difficult year that felt like a decade, we look forward to the Generation Equality Forum to rejuvenate ourselves through our action coalitions and ensuring our governments apply a gender lens to their policies to alleviate the burden that they have imposed on women and celebrate women in leadership and in the decision-making roles. I would like to say something about the joy that we are looking forward to in the Generation Equality Forum. Huri, after watching this video, this is the joy of the Generation Equality Forum. This is exactly the definition for it. And seeing all those girls speak from the heart and speak about their wants and their futures, this is what makes it all okay for us to work in such a difficult environment and under against such oppressive regimes, to fight for these girls and these women, and have their backs when this government and all of our governments joint do not support us. So here we are in feminist solidarity. We are all going to work together, and we hope we will achieve that through the Generation Equality Forum. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Diana. With activists like you, yes, we definitely do have hope. Now I give the floor to Nia Shah from Girls Learn International. Nia, you have the floor. So touched.
Thank you so much, Huri, for this amazing meeting today. My name is Hia Shah. I am 17 years old. I am originally from India, but I live in Tehran, Saudi Arabia. I've lived in Saudi Arabia for my whole life. I am a UN delegate for Girls Learn International, part of the Generation Equality Forum, and I'm the founder and executive director of an international nonprofit called Fundraising for the Girl Child. So yes, I'll get started with my speech now. Thank you so much. Your Excellencies, UN Women Executive Director, NGO CSW Chair, CSW Delegates, CSW Chair, and distinguished guests. It is devastating to know that even though adolescent girls constitute 900 million people of our globe's population, we remain the most excluded group in policy and decision-making spaces. We must stand together as an international community to further propel UN Women's Generation Equality Forum, which mobilizes and highlights young women and girl voices for inclusive decision-making that considers the perspectives of all girls, regardless of their ethnicity, age, nationality, sexuality, or any other status. Young girls have an immense influence, and we demand to be a part of the design and the implementation of all actions that impact our lives. We demand more than to be welcomed at the table. We demand to be partners in designing and co-creating the table. Too often, girls feel as if they are powerless. Too often, girls feel as if no means of change are in their control. However, this could not be farther from the truth. Start from where you stand. We must all start from where we stand, as there is always something that can be done, whether that be educating ourselves, raising awareness and funds, challenging the system, calling others out, and most importantly, refusing to continue generational gender stereotypes that have harmed both men and women alike. I have seen and been an active part of the extent to which the UN Generation Equality Forum has empowered thousands upon thousands of girls from across the globe. And I could not be more grateful to UN Women, civil society, and girls-related organizations for this. The Generation Equality Forum may be far from polished, but it is inclusive, it is empowering, it is mobilizing, and most importantly, it is purposeful. As adolescent girls, the most critical challenge holding us back are traditional gender roles contributing to educational inequities. I have first-handedly seen the catastrophic impact a lack of education has on on women's rights, socially, politically, and economically as well. In my own state of origin, Gujarat, India, less than 24% of rural Indian girls receive a secondary education as a result of cultural and economic hindrances. Less than 24%. Gender educational equity is a key driving force for a variety of girls' rights, such as financial independence, the eradication of child marriage, and empowerment of future generations. However, a significant barrier to the universal right to equal education outlined in the UDHR is cultural relativism and the unbinding nature of international law. Why are human rights documents like the UDHR only codified but not made binding for all member states? In the near future, I hope to see member states and agencies be held accountable and follow through with ratified international legislation, such as the Beijing Platform for Action and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. My hope is that international law and legislation will be upheld as binding by all member states and stakeholders to propel gender equity internationally. Although some may call me overly ambitious or even idealistic, not too long ago, a 17-year-old Indian girl living in monocratic Saudi Arabia, speaking up about women's rights on an international platform at the UN CSW was also seen as ambitious. Yet here we stand in front of you as generation equality, refusing to continue the mistakes and misogyny embedded into our communities. Girls and young women are an unstoppable force for change. We demand change, and we demand it now. Thank you.
Okay. I mean, seriously, I want to hear anyone challenge Hia right now. I mean, Hia, you make us so proud. You make us so excited to be where we are right now. And you make the 14-year-old girl in me want to scream out and say, thank you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this fight. And please, we are here to support you. No one's gonna stop you. I can tell you that no one's gonna stop you. Thank you. Wow. How can we, okay, we have more, folks. We have more. This is like amazing. I want to now go to the most amazing soul I know, Yancine. Make sense of what's going on here. I am beside myself. The floor is yours.
Okay, now I'm all charged up. I'm so humbled to be here in this very, very sacred virtual space with all of you as we're kicking off this historic moment for Generation Equality Forum to just unify our voices to radically speed up the pace to gender equity and to gender justice. My name is Yancine. I come before you today. On my shoulders are the voices and the visions of the global online community of World Pulse, 75,000 women and allies strong. They're logging on from 200 plus countries and territories in a safe online refuge to tell their stories and dreams in their own words, to exchange resources and solidarity. And as we heard, this is a time where being online can be a war zone. New studies are showing that women and girls experiencing cyber violence at a rates of 50% for those that are online. And this can have a profound silencing and traumatic effect. And what we know in having a decade of experience of holding protected and safe online space, that we can support the liberation of voice and being heard and hold online space to grow leadership of those that are most impacted and left out. I grew up paralyzingly shy in the rural United States, and daily, one of my greatest joys, we're talking about joys today as well, is the wonders that I witnessed, this miracle of voices blossoming online, of women and girls primarily coming online to share, to unburden themselves, to cry, to shout, those that have been left behind, those who say, I have been treated like trash, I have been treated like an animal, I've been treated like an insect, and to be heard for the first time, whether that is a widow, person with disability, indigenous, coming from conflict zones, the crushing mass of those that are struggling with their mental health right now, and some of those who are feeling like they may not even have the will to live, those that may not have access to a visa, may not have access to a plane ticket, may not have access for a chance to vote, but now they can come online and they can have their voices heard globally. I've heard the words be used of that finding an online space, finding a tribe, finding a community can completely alter the lives of so many. I've heard words used like, I have been resurrected. I have found a space where I'm not being judged for my grammar, for my physical appearance. My voice was like a frog at the bottom of a dark well, and now I have leapt out into the sun. I was trapped in the four walls of my home, but now I found a place that is my home, my liberation, and my heaven. So the first important message that I want to bring from our community is to this challenge, this time when there's so much fear of the danger of technology, we bring hope. And we know that it is possible to design online spaces and communities. We can build technology that can be transformative, that supports humanity, that supports the flourishing of feminine solutions. And actually, this is essential and this is urgent, especially now in the pandemic era when online spaces have shifted from a supporting role to a primary role. And still, nearly half of the world's women are left off of online spaces. As more and more come online, let us create warm blankets that they can come online to, spaces that are healing, spaces like NGO CSW, like what we're creating here today, so they can participate fully. We had a recent crowdsourced campaign called She Transforms Technology, and the hope that comes out of that is the message that technology cannot just be about building economic advancement. That is very important. But there are three areas that we must pay attention to. We must strengthen technology to, one, build movements, two, support women and girls to learn about and secure their rights, and three, to advocate for marginalized groups. And we hear the saying again and again, those in power must also listen to women who are gathering online. So as I close, we know there's much to come with the Technology and Innovation Working Group, and we are all preparing now to supercharge these movements with greater online and collective power. And I just implore all of us to not miss this opportunity, to invest, not just in this app or that app, but to invest in a strong, safe online ecosystem for womankind. That we now gather the digital architects and the revolutionaries, and we build strong infrastructure that strengthens organizations and individuals so that those coming online, the most left out, the most unheard, are heard. And we are proud to partner with NGO CSW New York to welcome you to the online community of World Pulse after the forum, to worldpulse.com to stay connected until the next one. Share your vision for a post-pandemic future, and we will have the joy. We are entering to a time of enormous joy to hear the roar of those quiet voices, those shy voices, the suppressed voices. We are going to activate an absolutely unstoppable river, a torrent of stronger movements and change, because we're not only telling our own stories, we're banding together to write a new one. And for Generation Equality Forum, we will unite online to also power change on the ground. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, Yancine. And such an honor to partner with you. I hope everybody goes to your partner page on our virtual platform and engages and tells stories. And like you said, we don't want to lose each other in between CSWs, right? And you're so generous to provide us space to keep engaging with our stories. Thank you. Well, from the civil society voices, last but certainly not least, we are so looking forward to hearing from our Violet to tell us from her own experience. You know, Violet, you've been in this space for so long, so we'd love to hear your advice and your thoughts on all of this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for this great opportunity. My name is Violet Shibutsen. I am a grassroots woman leader from a local community-based organization here in Kenya, which is a member of Wairu Commission, a global movement of grassroots women-led organization that is now in 51 countries. And one thing that I'm happy that begins my joy is that we were created in a tent in Beijing. So I am going to speak from sharing the joys and then the hope and the challenges, because that's how I learned to speak, appreciations first. So it's a real big honor that the joy that I am bringing here today is the legacy of the 25 years that we have made as women movement, especially as grassroots women movement, to ensure that our voices are strongly heard and we are able to organize from bottom to top, especially from the context of learning from the struggles that we have been going through, from the struggles of HIV, where the big force of grassroots women that were affected with HIV came up to start caregiving. We are also looking at how grassroots women have learned from poverty and been able to identify sustainable solutions that respond to poverty, not just at their own household level, but have been able to learn through peer exchanges to transfer this knowledge to other grassroots women, and other leaders and even development partners have been able to replicate these practices. Grassroots women movement has also been able to really look at what building resilience in the context of climate change and environmental challenges that we have been happening, what it really looks like. Other cases that I'll be able to cite in my legacy is how grassroots women have become the trainers of the local authority in advancing development. And just to say, even in translating the sustainable development goals and being able to work together to set priorities that are able to advance development from the bottom and change the scenarios that we have been experiencing to actually better our society. This has actually showed what inclusivity means and how we can work together in setting the agenda as a women movement. So I want to go to what our hope looks like. My hope is that the generation equality and especially UN Women will continue to recognize that grassroots women are important, and that through the learned experience of grassroots women, and we are a force that can be able to advance development, and we are the ones that are actually strengthening the global agenda and speaking to the global agenda at the local level. It is our hope that the constituency-based should be recognized as a driving force. Women from the grassroots, women from the indigenous, we have had girls also sharing here. Constituency-based is an approach that should be adopted and should continue in leading us to in the next 5 years and beyond in how we organize around the issues that affect women. Also, I want to speak about our hope in who speaks for who. As grassroots women, we understand the issues that affect us, and we have stopped coming to platforms to share, to cry and complain. We have actually shown indeed how we are able to transform communities and transform our lives. It's important to be respected from that context and speak for ourselves, and even be able to use the spirit of leaving no one behind that is in our SDGs. That is our greatest hope. It is also our hope that we are going to redefine what meaningful partnership means, how partners come to the table, right from the women movement. How do we recognize diverse? How do we bring the voices of the grassroots women and other women groups like the indigenous that are struggling and are bringing solutions? What is the challenges? The challenge right now that we have is how we are able to integrate the voice of grassroots women and make grassroots women to be planners with this challenge of resources during COVID-19. This is an area that we are really perceiving as a challenge. And I really think that the lessons we have learned from other pandemics that grassroots women have been able to lead, we can be able to also use the same spirit to bring grassroots women to the center of COVID-19 recovery process, to be planners and share experience in what we are already doing and how we are organized. It is also a challenge for me right now on how we are able to actually share the platforms that we have and ensure that these platforms are going to be able to bring the voices and bring innovations that we have not been able to bring to the table. This is a discussion we want to carry forward from all the forums, the CSW, which we are very active from today to the Mexican conference and to France. We are really ready to carry forward this kind of discussion. Thank you so much, Mary, and thank you everyone for listening.
Violet, yes, thank you. And thank you for being here from 25 years ago and bringing the voices of why we are still engaged in this process, right? It was a momentous time in Beijing, which some of us were not there, obviously, but to see it come to fruition now. Well, it is my honor now to introduce you all to the 5 members of the core group, and we're gonna start with the civil society. And Chamati, I'm sorry if I messed you up earlier and confused you, but we are so happy to have you all here to hear what's going on in your group. How are you all addressing it? I know how hard you're all working. I know how often you're all meeting and answering all kinds of questions. So let our audience know what to expect and how we can all support you. You have the floor, and then we'll go through the list. Thank you.
Thanks, Hari. Good morning, good evening to all of you. And it is so inspiring to hear from all of you about, you know, the challenges, hopes, and the contributions from all the members who spoke earlier, but also the inspiring words from the working group on girls and what the girls have to say about it. I'm inspired and empowered already from all what I heard. But I would be speaking on behalf of the Generation Equality Youth Task Force and as its representative to the core group. But before I start, I also want to put my virtual background, which is the youth journey mapping that we did, you know, to really look at how youth and adolescent girls would be in this process, in this journey. So starting off, I'm really, you know, looking forward to, can you, okay. I'm really looking forward to CSW because 8 years ago, as a 19-year-old, I remember walking the corridors of the UN when I first had the chance to attend the 57th CSW with Girl Guides and Girl Scouts delegation, and attending the regional caucuses, the parallel events, the side events, you know, running sometimes when you're late for events. All that experience really was, you know, a major part of my advocacy journey. And CSW definitely played such an important role. And this is the 5th year I'm going to be part of it. And it feels a little different to be on this virtual platform, but I hope we can make the best of it. And really excited that so many, you know, members are going to be part of this process already. As a youth activist, I had the privilege to be part of the 20th and 25th Beijing Plus 25 review process. And I'm grateful to all the civil society leaders who probably guided me through those processes, and they've inspired me in numerous ways to keep working hard in this journey. Coming back to Generation Equality Forum and the campaign, I think it comes at the right time when we are facing a risk of losing years of progress we've made on achieving gender equality. You know, with COVID-19 pandemic, we know that women and girls are disproportionately affected by it. So I'm so grateful to UN Women, Mexico, and France for initiating this groundbreaking intergenerational and multi-stakeholder process that would accelerate the progress towards gender equality in the next 5 years. Also, speaking the multi-stakeholder engagement, one of the key achievements I see in this transformative process is the fact that youth are not only consulted and engaged in this process, but co-leading and involved at all levels of decision making. It is evident that we are in the right path with, you know, the creation of the Youth Task Force, the recruitment of 300 national youth gender activists, and allocating a dedicated spot for youth-led organization in each of the 6 action coalitions. You know, Also, I think the civil society advisory group itself has youth activists, making it very diverse and representative, but also inclusive. It is equally important to highlight that adolescents who seem to be neglected in many processes are at the center of this agenda. And unlike any other generation equality campaign, consciously consults and engages them through different platforms. As young people in different structures of the generation equality campaign, I feel we are going to launch a youth manifesto, which is going to highlight some of the challenges we have, but also some recommendations we have in terms of meaningful youth leadership and participation. How are we going to collectively make a create a safe and brave space for young people to have shared leadership in this process, and how can we really make their views, their opinions, recommendations come into account and really be considered in this global, regional, and national level of this campaign. We also wish to bring young people's voices across all constituencies, especially vulnerable and underprivileged communities, but also, the voice of the voiceless. We really need to bring that voice to the table. So we hope that everyone could support us in bringing those voices into this global process. We are accountable to our peers and youth-led organizations for a transparent process. Therefore, we wish to hold each other accountable to the mission and principles of the generation equality. So we request your support in engaging with young people and organizations working at local and grassroots level to bring those issues and priorities, but also really monitoring how those commitments and actions are happening at that level. Finally, I would like to invite you all to join us in solidarity and to work together with UN Women, with governments, with the private sector, and of course, us young people in this multi-stakeholder process to take this initiative forward. And wishing everyone all the best for a productive Commission on the Status of Women for the 65th time, and good luck to you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your commitment and your dedication and for your whole youth task force. I know there's many of you working on this. Now we move on to Zonzua, my pal on Civil Society Advisory Group, who will tell you her commitments. I hope she's here. Zonzua. I know sometimes she drops off with her connections. We will give her the floor when she comes back on. I do not see her right now. I'm sorry. Let's go to Delphine, representing France. Devin, if you're ready, let's hear from Delphine while we hopefully get Zonzua back again. Thank you.
Dear Huri, dear colleagues from the core group, dear civil society representatives, dear all. It's an honor, it's a pleasure for me to be here today. Like my colleagues before, I would like to share with all of you some of the challenges that I think we face in organizing the Generation Equality Forum, but also my hopes and my joys regarding this forum. The challenges. As you can imagine, one of the biggest challenges in organizing the forum is dealing with all the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. We had to reschedule an international event that was supposed to physically reunite thousands of activists, government officials, members of international organizations, and actors from the private sector in Paris. We have been dealing with the uncertainty induced by the pandemic for about a year now. This has been a challenge, but a challenge that I hope we have turned into an opportunity. An opportunity to reinvent the format of the event, to connect with even more people than we had originally planned, to reach new marginalized girls and women of all the generations and from all regions around the world. On another topic, I also think that one of the challenges of our forum is navigating through the innovative multi-stakeholder governance that we have put in place. It is the first time for an international conference on women's rights of this magnitude that young feminist and civil society organizations are included in the very decision-making process at the highest level. Those activists bring their aspirations and demands to the conversations. They want to hold us accountable, and this is a challenge that we accept gladly. Especially because it is important for us to listen to the young generation, to the generation equality, as we open a new chapter of international cooperation on women's rights and gender equality. Now our hopes. My dearest hope is, of course, that the forum will impulse concrete changes and that it will significantly improve the living conditions of women and girls in every corner of the world. I do hope that we will talk about the Generation Equality Forum in the same way that we talk today about the Beijing Platform for Action, as a milestone for gender equality and women's rights at the international level. I do hope that 26 years from now, when we reflect on the progress made, we'll be able to point out concrete improvements, that we will be able to say that economic inequalities and gender-based violence have reduced, or that feminist leaders are not an exception anymore. As you know, France is the champion of the Action Coalition on Body Autonomy and Sexual and Reproductive Health and Rights. So I also hope that we will be able to achieve significant and irreversible changes in this area. I hope that the forum's blueprints will prevent in the future what we see happening now in some regions of the world: legislations being reversed and undoing years of progress. I hope that the commitments taken by the Action Coalition champions and the commitment makers will help reduce the dramatic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on women's sexual rights, and that having actors from all horizons work together will ensure that women and girls in every country can access abortion and contraception in safe conditions. And now joys. Of course, my biggest joy would have been to see thousands of feminists gather in Paris for the largest international conference on women's rights and gender equality of the past 25 years. But still, I'm really looking forward to the event, which I believe will mark a turning point in how we act on the international level for gender equality. It is such a joy already to see how deeply civil society is involved in the preparation of the forum. Fearless and powerful girls and young women around the world are starting important conversations, and we see more of them every day using the Generation Equality hashtag to represent themselves. NGOs are formulating their hopes for the forum and are engaging in the curated discussions and the public conversations led by UN Women. Everyone is ready, and so are we. Finally, on a personal level, I am proud to be part of such an important step towards international feminist diplomacy. But not any type of feminist diplomacy, one that is based on concrete engagements for concrete results and progress. I do thank you all for your attention, and I hope to see you all in Mexico from March 29th to March 31st, and then in Paris from June 30th to July 2nd for the Generation Equality Forum. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have Zonzua back. Let's give her the floor before she loses connection. Thank you.
Thank you. And so honored to be here. And it's always a great joy for me to, to join sisters, aunties, mothers across the globe to discuss about the issues that we care most about. And I will just go straight, to responding what are my joy, hope, as well as challenges. I'm here representing one of the 21 CSEC members. I also a convener for the Gen Égalité CAS CEMAC, which is birthed from the Generation Equality Campaign within the CEMAC region that constitutes 6 countries: Gabon, Cameroon, Chad, Equatorial Guinea, and Central African Republic. And I think I will stem from, working in the movement and the experience so far, and sharing personal challenges as also a member of the CSEC, and one of which is definitely what just happened to me, technology. They say the world is getting virtual, everybody is, online now, but at the same time, the one thing which is a challenge I feel and I experience, and with my colleagues as well, is the fact that in as much as the world is getting virtual, technology, those in technology are not helping. So we are all using technology, but they are not helping, the users to access. In this case, I'm talking about either it's the cost, or is the accessibility, or is just the bandwidth, which is not that helpful for the common person to access. And going back to my joy so far for the Generation Equality Forum is the fact that I see us all mobilizing stronger online, but with an emphasis that young women and women's rights defenders have always been organizing and mobilizing online even before the world becoming virtual. This is a conversation that we need to have, and we need to celebrate that women had always used this space safely to speak and to organize and find out common solutions around issues that they experience. However, the world is now getting virtual, but the space is not safer, as Jensen had earlier mentioned. And this is another challenge, which though there is the joy element of the fact that we are organizing online, but there is the aspect of the challenge. And my hope generally, like Devin said, I hope to see that the generation equality translates into direct actions and practical solutions on the ground. We are all organizing, which is a unique thing for the Generation Equality Forum. The fact that it's a co-creation, as Lopa would always say, this is a co-creation between the civil society, the government of Mexico, the government of France. It's a collective action, and it's our collective thought that we are putting in towards driving an equal future for all. And we should not relent our effort at this moment, because we have invested so much to see that the vision or the future is equal for all. And this will not be the time for us to relent our effort, and which to me, I would call on the governments and those in the decision-making spaces to actually mean these words that we have put in the Generation Equality blueprint. And I also would want to see as a hope more meaningful investment. It's one thing to say, oh yes, I commit, but there is no financial investment. In this case, I particularly focus on the financial investment. There should be a genuine financial investment, like the way they invest in military, for example. They should invest in that same way and that's a momentum for gender equality. I think then I will be happy to call, to see our governments taking priority for gender equality if they can invest the way they invest in military on actions regarding gender equality. And I think those are just my hopes and my joy, and I'm definitely excited and looking forward to continuing this journey with all of you, and always an honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Zanzua. I know how hard you work on the ground and the amazing job you do, and creative. Your background was beautiful. Everyone, I just want to let you know, please give us another 10 minutes. We're extending our program because the next two messages are important, and we have some good music afterwards and some dancing if you want to shake your body on this Sunday. But now I really want to thank Nadine for being here. Mexico is right now so busy, getting ready to launch their forum. So thank you for taking the time to come and give us your messages of challenges, hopes, and joys. The floor is yours, Nadine.
Thank you so much to having us here. And you cannot imagine how excited we are to listen to everybody and to just have this very strong feeling that we're there. We're getting there. As you can imagine, we're working every moment to make sure that that space that we had been thinking and hoping for, and as Delphine said so wisely. We hoped it would be in person, but now we will make it happen. And I think this, and I want Auri to really congratulate you, because this energy we have in this virtual space is the energy we want to bring to Mexico. We are really inspired by the conversation, the strength of the voices of Amani, Diana, Hija, and the poetry of the girls. It's really a moment of joy. And I want to tell you that we are waiting for you in Mexico, 29 to 31st. We will have a space of deep and important commitments. You know, I say everywhere that this is not a century of planning, it's a century of actions. And that's what we want to make happen in Mexico with UN Women, our partners of France, civil society, the Youth Coalition, all this energy we have around. 45 years ago, the world celebrated the historic first World Conference of Women in Mexico, where for the first time, women from all the planet got together to discuss and demonstrate that development was not possible without the central participation. And I want to tell you that we just opened a photo exhibit in the streets of Mexico showing the strength and the inspiration of these women. And 26 years ago, we were in the fourth conference of women, and that's where the Beijing Declaration and Platform of Action was put forward as a concrete pathway to achieve gender equality. Since then, a lot has been gained for the recognition of girls and women around the world. However, we're not where we want to be. The systemic barriers that hold women back from equal participation in all areas persist, especially affecting women and girls, and the pandemic has not made it easier. We know that for women around the world, the pandemic has increased the burden, but has also exposed in an incredible way what it's needed. This year, the 65th session of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women will discuss an important theme for us: women full and effective participation in decision-making in public life, as well as the elimination of violence to achieve gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. There is a growing interest of women in political, economic, and social spheres. We still have, as it has been said over and over, serious inequalities. We had made important changes in Mexico, but still there is a lot to be done. And we have seen the women and the girls in the streets of Mexico with their strengths, with the important message for us at the government and to the world. We are taking active space to provide solutions in Mexico to these obstacles. And for example, we had since 2018, the first joint Congress where we have parity, and we can see the parity in action. We're seeing it in the laws we have in terms of work, of care, of political participation. So in this context, the Generation Equality Forum is a critical process and commitment to expand the space, to innovate in the way we do business, and especially it's a space for commitments. It's a space to reverse the rising gender inequalities and advance to achieve it in the next few years. We don't have patience, we're impatient, and that's fantastic. We aim that the forum will be an opportunity to celebrate the power of women's rights activism, the feminist solidarity, and the youth leadership. The Generation Equality Forum has been designed as a space where deep conversations, commitment, and exchange of information comes together to really put forward an agenda that accelerates change and that brings the hopes and the resources and the money required to make the changes happen. We are working very hard with you, as it has been said, in a very co-creational mode to have an intergenerational, intersectoral, multi-stakeholder space that promotes commitments for change. It is what we are working, and we are bringing all our minds, our efforts to develop methodologies to have meaningful conversations and commitments. We want to accelerate change, and as a co-host of the forum, we invite you to this global public conversation for urgent action and accountability. As I said, it will happen March 29 to March 31, and the energy, the effort, the ideas will go to Paris at the end of June and beginning of July. We welcome everybody to come here, and we really, really want to ensure that we can celebrate the power of women's rights activists, the feminist solidarity, and youth leadership, so we can have transformative change. Thank you so much, and just get here, virtually, but get here.
Absolutely, thank you. We will share the link for everyone to sign up. We are so happy that you have made it in an open forum, so we're looking forward to joining you in Mexico as soon as we finish CSW and rest for 24 hours. Lopa, the floor is yours. Thank you for your leadership, your vision, your joy that you bring into this circle. Thank you, Lopa.
Thank you so much, Huri, and greetings to all of you, fellow feministas, comrades, and fellow sojourners on this marvelous path that we journey together. Greetings to all of you. I wish we were all together standing in the hall of the marvelous Apollo Theater. But in the absence of that, thank you so much, Huri, and thank you to NGO CSW for convening this amazing space this morning. Welcome to all of you to the 65th session of the Commission on the Status of Women. Friends, we stand at a profoundly affecting moment in global history. We have seen through last year huge loss of human lives, loss of jobs and livelihoods, increased poverty, the anxiety, fear, the uncertainty triggered by the pandemic. But we also stand today at a moment of profound hope and anticipation. The world today recognizes the immense power of interconnected collaboration. Through shared solidarity, friends, the world stopped last year. The entire world stopped because it was in humanity's interest to do so. And the entire world has started again through the magnificent global cooperation and solidarity to make vaccines available to recover from COVID. Never more than now is it evident that global challenges are interconnected and that can only be addressed through the world coming together. We dreamed the Generation Equality Forum because we were frustrated and impatient with the sluggish pace of progress for gender equality. We were angry and concerned about the pushback and reversals so many years after Beijing and after Mexico and after Nairobi and after Copenhagen. And we were inspired and motivated by the fierce and energized mobilization of feminists of all generations across the world, demanding equality, justice, and peace. That was the hope with which we set up the Generation Equality Forum. That collaboration, solidarity, intersectional mobilization, the world coming together would make the change that we needed to be. And so we set up this revolutionary model of intergenerational, multi-stakeholder co-leadership of the forum to drive its agenda of movement building for gender equality and accelerated action for gender equality. It was a revolutionary model. It is a revolutionary model with civil society, young people, governments, the UN, the private sector, philanthropies, and others in joined up co-visioning and co-leadership. The challenge, we set up a revolutionary model, but we were not prepared for revolution. Co-leadership is about flattening power, sharing power, redistributing power. It is easy to dream about, but very hard to do. We are talking about intergenerational leadership, co-leadership, multi-stakeholder co-leadership. We know how to do multi-stakeholder participation. We know how to do intergenerational participation, but leadership, that is what we are learning. How to collaborate with the full strength of our different constituencies. How to be leaders together. How to hear about agenda setting other than our own. How to seed space, share voice, listen and hear. We are learning through mistakes, heartache, but ultimately with hope and joy. Because joy it is to see the ambition of what this co-visioning can accomplish. The scale, the scope, and potential for transformative action is within reach. And there is such joy in this joint agenda setting, this shared visioning, and hope that our determination to achieve the actions will not tire. COVID did not hold us back. There was joy in seeing that. And we are emerging stronger. We have emerged stronger from COVID. My fellow feminists, what we are building together is an idea of contemporary, invigorated, reinvigorated multilateralism. A United Nations of this time. We, the peoples that serves its peoples. A United Nations that is inclusive, ambitious, courageous, effective. The Generation Equality Forum is about intergenerational, multi-stakeholder solidarity, partnerships, the meaningful engagement of young people, and a reimagined global contract for gender equality. It is a joyful journey of equality. Therein lies the challenge, the hope, the joy. Join us in this challenge, in this hope, and through this joy. Join us in Mexico at the end of this month, and we will journey from there together to Paris at the end of June. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for co-creating this together with us. Thank you.
Wow, Lupa, thank you. Ivy, where are you? Come on in and join me. Thank you for keeping it within the minutes as well, so we get to see the UN Orchestra play a special piece for us. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, GEF team. You are amazing. Ivy, are you here?
I'm here.
There you go.
Talking with you.
We're on Apollo 6.
Much.
Thank you.
So, Opa, that was so great to end on that note. And I appreciate all the speakers, and I think it's well worth us going a little over time. And UN Orchestra has prepared a recording, and we have to play it. It's absolutely fantastic. And we have a
goodbye now, and then and then we'll play it until we get kicked off.
Sure, because we're gonna get kicked off after a certain point. But Susan O'Malley, past chair, is also in there if you could find her. She's a cellist. So we just want to say our farewells, and also just want to put a plug in to go into the NGO CSW exhibit booth. That's so important because there are many, many events NGO CSW is co-sponsoring and sponsoring, and you can get into the Zoom through the exhibit booth, which is, you know, a different space. But there's one PDF, you can download it, and you get all the links at once. So I really recommend that. That's it.
Enjoy.
Hello, my name is Predrag Vasic. I'm the music director of the United Nations Symphony Orchestra. I welcome this opportunity for us to perform in this year's session of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. Our virtual performance today will feature the work of Florence Price, the first American female composer of African American descent, whose work was performed by a major symphony orchestra. Her life's work included over 300 compositions, including symphonies, concertos, and numerous smaller works. Our selection today is Nimble Feet, the first movement of her suite, Dances in the Canebrakes. This is but a small sample of the many gifts she brought to her compositions. They all reveal an astonishing ability to combine opposites, such as urban and rural, folk and classical, and spiritual and secular, into unified displays of the glories of music for all peoples and generations. What a splendid time to honor her work at the United Nations, at this particular event on the status of women, and as the world is gradually starting to overcome the tragic hardships of this horrible pandemic. So, let us now let Florence Price lead the way. I'm sure she could not have been prouder than to contribute this music in honor of the status of women worldwide.
We did it. All right, that was beautiful music. Thank you all so much. Ivy, we did. Yeah, we were so worried we were going to get kicked off. Just so that you know, that's what the platform does, gives you 10 minutes after your scheduled time. Ambassador Margarian, Madame Fumzili, I'm not sure if Marie's still here. Lopa, you're amazing. Thank you for your support and your team's support, actually. All speakers. We'll see you. Well, we have 2 more consultation days, Geneva and Latin America later today. Go on our platform and join us. For those of you who can't be on our platform, trust me, we're trying to open up space and include all the people on the waiting list. Thank you so much. Ivy. Thanks, Diana. Thanks, Chamatya, and whoever I see. All right. See you.
See you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.